Hello, everyone. This is Father Son Galaxy. I am Kerwin. This is Keith.
Hello.
All right. So here's the moment we've been waiting for. This is our spoiler review of The Mandalorian and Grogu, now in theaters. Keith, I want to start off. And what I want to say is when Disney acquired Lucasfilm, one of the first things that they wanted to do, or the first announcements they made, was that there was going to be a sequel trilogy, right? And that was very important for them that these last three films would be made. So we got The Force Awakens in 2015, which to me, I still think it holds up. I enjoy watching that movie. And I think some of the problems that people were having with that film, although it brought back the original cast, and then you have these new characters coming together. But I think one of the problems or complaints that I've heard from people who've seen the film is that it reminds them too much of A New Hope. Like the beats are the same. You know, you got a new Death Star, you got this droid at the beginning of the movie is involved in the battle, and then is sent to a desert planet where he meets a scavenger, a loner, and she takes him in, and and then they're found by the First Order. All that we've heard that about The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And that's probably true that it did. Yes, it did feel like, it was A New Hope, a rehash of A New Hope, or some elements of A New Hope. But what I think was the most important thing about this film is that because it hasn't been a Star Wars film since 2005, 10 years later, I think the producers, what they really wanted to see is people come back to the theaters and enjoy the Star Wars experience on the big screen. And I think they succeeded because this movie made $1 billion. Okay. Now, if we move into episodes eight, episodes 8 and 9, um, the fan was divided. And this is not, you know, news that you haven't heard before, but yeah, there's definitely a division in the fan base. And then by 2019, when we got The Rise of Skywalker, I think the films were probably in a spot where the producers of Lucasfilm weren't expecting to be. It may not have been well received as they would have liked, but what they had in place, even if it's temporary, was Disney Plus. So in 2019, by the time I think it was the fall of 2019, is when we got the first Disney Plus series, and that was The Mandalorian. And that was a huge success.
It was a very good show as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a wonderful show. And they actually brought in people who were not just Star Wars fans, but casual fans, people who probably have never watched Star Wars until then. They loved this series. It
It
just
really
felt like,
expanded the fan base, I would say.
yes, it did. It did, which was really great. Now, then we got the pandemic in 2020, and we couldn't even go to the movie theaters if we wanted to. So we had Disney Plus to rely on. And then, there other series came after The Mandalorian, some with good success, others were not as successful. But I believe Disney and Lucasfilm realized that, okay, well, Star Wars is supposed to be experienced in a movie theater, right? That's what Star Wars was always about. It was this big spectacle with visual effects and sound and music, had to be experienced on the big screen. So they have worked very hard to try to develop new Star Wars movies. Now, if you remember in 2023, I believe it was at the London celebration, Kathleen Kennedy came out and told everybody and floored everybody, because no one was expecting this, that we were not going to get not just one movie, not just two movies, but three movies were in development. One was about the Rey movie taking place after episode 9. There was one that was going to be about the Dawn of the Jedi, directed by James Mangold, and then another movie directed by Dave Filoni. All right. So we couldn't believe it. Wow, three movies. It's wonderful. Star Wars is back. Well, unfortunately, None of these three movies ever made it to production. I guess they're still in development. I don't even know what the status is of these three films. And now Disney and Lucasfilm is in a panic. And they know that as time goes by and the longer it takes for them to get a film developed and get it into the theaters, the worse it could get because, fans are craving for a movie. Okay. So now here we are in 2026, and it is almost 7 years since The Rise of Skywalker. We finally got a movie. Now, this movie is The Mandalorian and Grogu. And I think the reason why they chose to make a film instead of season four, the plan was supposed to be season four, and they decided to make a movie is one, they wanted to get people back into the movie theater, right? And two, the only way they're going to get them back is to give them a reason to come back, and that is to have this IP, this Mandalorian and Grogu, these characters that are so well loved. They had to be the star of the film, the stars of the film. So they were going to be the ones that are going to bring the audience back into the theaters. So I feel like we're back in that situation that we were in 2015, where the Force Awakens was supposed to bring fans back into the theater, and now we're doing it again in 2026. Now, time will tell if this strategy works, depending on the box office. But all in all, they want people to experience, they as in Disney, want people to experience Star Wars on the big screen. All right. And that's what we have. So let's talk about The Mandalorian Grogu. We're going to do
Yeah,
a
let's
spoiler
talk about
review.
what we came here for.
That's right. So,
And
yeah.
as you guys know, there will be spoilers, a lot of them.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely spoilers. Okay. So let's start off with, well, I call it, they used to call it like the pre-opening credit sequence. Now they call it the cold open. So that is, you have something happening, an event that's happening right before the credits, right? The first 20 minutes of this movie is fantastic. I would say if there's any part of this film that had to be experienced on the big screen, this is it. So this is the part where, I'm certain these are the same 20 minutes that were shown in the movie theater before the release of the film, and people just couldn't get enough of it. So basically, there is no opening crawl, right? It's not like a Star Wars film, episodes, the episodic films, no crawl, but there is a title card, which goes something like the evil empire has fallen and imperial warlords remain scattered throughout the galaxy. And then we see this scene of an imperial leader, and he's sitting at his desk, some type of bunker, and he's got these people surrounding him, and he's convincing them that the empire is not dead, we are still alive, long live the empire.
He's
And the
selling him
people,
snake oil.
yeah, and the people at the table just seems very hesitant. They're thinking, okay, well, what are you talking about? The empire is dead, the emperor is gone, but that's what he's selling them. Like you said, he's a snake oil salesman. And then all of a sudden we hear this blast of fire in the distance. And then we realize that someone is coming for this imperial officer. And of course, that's Din Djarin. And his entrance into the movie was awesome. Like he's going around like he's in the shadows and he's taking out these stormtroopers. They don't know what's going on. Things are happening so quickly. And then we finally see him go through the blast doors, and he's got his blaster and his flamethrower working at the same time. It was pretty awesome.
I agree with you when you said that this was the best part of the film. I think it was great. Mando was moving like a horror movie villain in those shadows. I've never seen him do that. Like, genuinely, since when was he hitting moves like that?
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm a big James Bond fan. I know you have not seen a James Bond film as of yet, but this reminds me of one of these cold opens for a James Bond movie, where, either what's happening on the screen is related to the bigger picture of the film, or it's just a one-off, like it's just a mission that Bond is on and he's out to take care of the bad guy. So this is what it feels like to me. So this is Din Djarin going after the bad guy, and he actually uh, steals a ATRT, I think it's called, and Grogu is also there. There's a mouse droid that starts running around, and Grogu stops it in its tracks and breaks it apart. And the two of them get on this all-terrain vehicle, and you see these massive Imperial walkers, and they're trying to take these Imperial walkers down. You see that scene where they're on that snowy mountain, and Din Djarin says to Grogu to hold on, and they're going down this mountain. It is fantastic looking, and again, they're trying to destroy these Imperial walkers, which is they even look even bigger in this film than they did in The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, they look
Yeah.
really, 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 really cool.
And, I find it kind of funny that Mando's like, I try to avoid violence. And meanwhile, the man blew up like 3 walkers in the opening scene.
Yeah,
And he
right.
was just moving through those stormtroopers,
That's
you
true.
know?
That's right. And what's interesting, so this person, this Imperial officer, I'm thinking, well, is he the villain? Well, no, because he gets taken out during the cold open. So Mando is finished with his mission. He is picked up by Zeb. And, Zeb says to him, well, the idea was to actually keep the Imperial officer alive so the New Republic could question him. Of course, then Djarin says, well, things didn't go as planned. And then the credits begin. So to me, it's just something out of a James Bond movie. The only thing is you don't have the fancy opening titles that you would have for a Bond film. But that's what happens. And, like I said, those 20 minutes was the best in the movie, in my opinion, the best part of the movie. So now we open up, and Mando is heading back to the New Republic base, right? Again, the beat feels familiar because that's what happens usually after the credits in a Bond movie, where Bond returns to MI6, which is their headquarters, where his boss is located. And he goes into his boss's office, and he's given a new assignment. I feel the same way here because, Mando is walking with Zeb and Grogu, and they walk into this cantina, right? And there is Sigourney Weaver's character, Colonel Ward, which to me feels like M, and Din Djarin is Bond. So the point is that he comes in, and she is seated. She's not happy with the way things went. I think she called it sloppy, but she had another mission for him that they were going. She needed him to find this rogue. I think he is an Imperial officer, Johnny Coyne. So this officer is missing, and Colonel Ward, wants Mando, the bounty hunter, to find this person.
Mm. I mean,
And
you've just given away the twist.
what's the twist?
Remember the warlord,
Yeah, explain.
Lord Janu Coin?
What is that? His name in the movie? You mean?
Did you? I mean, you know how he was looking for a coin, and then he went to find Rotta, and then Rotta was like, "Yeah, Lord Janu is Janu Coin."
Okay. Yeah. So what I was going to say is that Johnny, it, you know, the Huts knows Johnny's whereabouts, and Din Djarin wants to know. Okay, well, what is the Huts? What do the Huts want in return? And it turns out that their nephew or cousin, I still couldn't figure out what, the relationship, because the two Huts are actually brother and sister, but they refer to Rada the Hutt as their nephew, but they're Jabba the Hutt's cousin. So it didn't, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, yeah, so the Huts do know the whereabouts of Johnny Coin. So Mando travels to Nahutta to pay a visit to the Huts. Okay. All right. Um, so then he goes and he finds out where Rada the Hutt is located. Now, Rada the Hutt is actually the son of Jabba the Hutt. Okay. In the film, Rada makes it very clear that he is not his father, right? So the character is voiced by Jeremy Allen White. Rada is not his father. He is actually very different than Jabba. One thing, physically, he is buffed. He's muscular. He's a gladiator. He fights for a living. Mando's under the impression that Rada is actually in prison or is being held against his will, and it turns out that that's not the case.
He's just cool with it for some reason.
Right, right. And by the way, Rada the Hutt was also this plot was also similar to the plot in the Clone Wars movie, right? Wasn't it Rotta who was kidnapped?
Yep,
Jabba's son was
that's
kidnapped?
correct.
Okay. All right. Jabba's son was kidnapped. Okay. All right. So apparently Rotta is okay. He's not being held under his will. And he's telling Mando, okay, well, there's nothing to worry about. I'm doing fine. I'm great. And he's very polite. He's looking at Grogu and he wants to feed him. And, you know, so this is the plot of this movie, and I'm thinking, okay, well, this doesn't seem like the type of plot that you would have for a major motion picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like a couple of episodes of the show rather than like a movie plot.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
necessarily a bad thing. It's just not what you expect when you go to see a movie, you know?
And then we're talking about who is exactly the villain in this movie. So, one, we thought it was the Imperial officer at the beginning of the film, and it's not. Then we actually thought it was Johnny Coyne. It's not him either because he actually gets captured very early in the movie. So, who is the villain or who are the villains? So, one of them is Embo. So, Embo is a bounty hunter, right, from the Clone Wars. The species is called a Koyuzo. He's from the homeworld of Batrong. His first appearance was in Clone Wars Season 2, Episode 17. I don't know if that is a character that you're familiar with, or do you recall this
Yeah, I've heard of
character?
him.
Yeah.
He's got a pet charhound.
I thought it was a charhound. It looked like one. I wasn't sure, but yes, he does have a pet charhound. Yeah. Mando confirms with the Hutts that Rada is fine. He's okay. He's safe and he doesn't need to be rescued. And, he wants to stay and, fight that last fight so that he can, be free to do whatever he wants. So now the bounty hunter Mando has now become the hunted because this other bounty hunter, Embo, is after him. And Embo actually gets to Din Djarin and is captured and is taken to the huts. Let's talk about the scene where Din Djarin is unmasked. This
Yeah.
was something that we saw in the trailer. So what do you want to say about that?
I think that's the problem. I'm glad to see Pedro Pascal earning his keep for the role, but I think maybe if they didn't put it in the trailer, it would have hit like more impactful because that's a pretty big moment. I mean, that's like if you put Daredevil giving up his secret identity in the trailer for Born Again Season 2. Like, that's not something you want to give away. So I kind of wish they left that out and I would have been surprised.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think you're right. It could have worked better if we didn't know that his mask was going to come off. Now,
Yeah.
what's interesting was how it comes off. So we know about the Mandalorian Creed, where he's not allowed to take off his helmet. But in this case, he didn't take off his helmet. His helmet was removed by Embo. So I'm wondering now, because he wasn't the one that took off his own helmet, somebody else did. So is that not in violation of the Mandalorian Creed, or is that something that is, well, he didn't remove his helmet, so he's okay, or he has not um, violated the Mandalorian Creed?
Mm. Well, I think they brought this up, but I don't think it really matters if you remove your helmet or not. If you get exposed to your enemy, you're still breaking the creed, unless everybody that sees your face dies.
And then we see Mando battling different creatures, or well, one is this white dragon, um, very huge,
It was the
hideous.
nastiest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah,
worm.
uh, yeah. So we've seen many creatures in this movie. This one in particular was actually very huge, but Mando was able to overtake it.
Oh, you know what? We got to go back for a second because I'm just realizing something. So, we kind of missed like all of the fighting part with Rada.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
But yeah, so Rada, Mando tries to go free him. Rada calls the guards on him because he's a bit dumb and he doesn't know he's gonna fight to the death. So then Mando and Rada have a fight. Mando yields, and then they start throwing all the creatures they have at both of them. Don't know why, but then they kind of escape. And this is the part that I wanted to talk about because I found it odd. Mando just kind of leaves, even though these creatures are still running around this like planet terrorizing innocent people. And I thought he was gonna like call for reinforcements to circle back, but we just never see them again. So that was a little bit odd and out of character for Mando to do because he's like known to help innocents, and those monsters were like not sparing people. So don't know why he just left it there for someone else to clean up.
In regards to Embo, now we know that Embo was hired by the Hutts to take out Din Djarin. I don't know if it was ever explained why the Hutts wanted Din Djarin.
Well, yeah, because he didn't get come through with the deal of giving them Rotta.
Okay. It was Rotta's decision not to go with Din Djarin.
Well, yeah, but they hired him to do a job. He didn't do the job, so they wanted his head.
Even though they understood that he was fine where he is. Rotta
Well,
was
they got
not
him
in
too.
prison.
So
Yeah. Yeah. He was not in prison. He was happy where he was. He wanted to be a fighter. So, well, it turns out, it sounds to me what the cousins wanted from, or the twins wanted from Rotta, maybe to be a part of the mob organization, just like his father. I wonder the trauma that Rotta may have been through, being the son of Jabba the Hutt. Now, Jabba has created this empire, this criminal organization, and of course, he wants to pass this down to his son, and his son wants nothing to do with it. And I think
well,
that's
Rotta just like I think Rotta had the power because he was the heir of Jabba, and they wanted that too. They wanted a slice of that pie, so they had to kill him, and then they would be the next in line.
yeah, okay, but they were already, yeah, I guess you're talking about succession, right? It's if something were to happen with Jabba's empire, it would be passed on to the son. But if the son didn't want any part of the organization, why didn't he just give it to his aunt and uncle or cousin? you
Well,
know?
I mean, they're evil. I guess he was just gonna like run away with the finances, but he wasn't putting it to use. That is a good point though, because I don't know why he didn't. Actually, I think he just didn't want to see more people get hurt, even though he's a fighter. He's fighting people that willingly signed up to fight, whereas the Hutts are like literally warlords. They don't really care about innocent people. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm missing something, but it just doesn't seem, I don't follow the reason why the twins would want to harm Rada just because he doesn't want to be a part of this criminal organization.
Well, yeah, but if he dies, they get the power because
All
he's
right.
the
I
direct
think they would
heir.
have, yeah, I think they'd have that power anyway if he didn't want the power for himself, if he didn't
Well,
want to
yeah,
be
but
the
it's like the
leader.
dark saber. Like you could go out and get the dark saber, sure, but if you don't win it in ritual combat, you don't really have the rights. It's more of a title and status thing, I think.
Oh, I see. And then maybe it could be out of fear as well. The twins are thinking, okay, well, if we take power and take charge of Jabba's organization, and then all of a sudden Rada changes his mind and wants it back because it belongs to him. He's inherited this organization. So I guess that's something that they might have considered that, okay, well, we don't want him to get in our way. And if he decided to come back and say, whoa, hey, I want to take over, then they got a problem. So I guess their plan is, well, we'll just take this into our own hands and take him out ourselves. All right. So then you mentioned that, okay, well, according to the Huts, Mando didn't do his job very well. So they hire a bounty hunter to take him out. And the bounty hunter does get close enough, and uh, Din Djarin is actually poisoned. Now, I wanted to talk about this scene because this is actually, you know, a great moment, I believe, in the film. Something that was my favorite. It really got to me. One of the things I enjoy about the Mando and Grogu team is, they bring their own strengths and weaknesses. We know that, Mando can defend himself. He can get himself out of trouble. Grogu still, you know, he's a little baby, even though he's 50 years old. He hasn't, in the 3 or 4 years that we know Grogu, I don't see much growth in his abilities. Maybe he's stronger in the Force. You could probably. Now I'm
Yeah,
looking at your face, and are you thinking, okay, do you think there's any growth in his strength in the Force or anything else?
absolutely.
Okay,
I mean, in
explain.
season 1, he used to, like, pass out after doing anything, and now he's just, like, ripping droids apart with no effort, being no worse for wear. I mean, he healed Mando and was still able to, do everything that he does, build that shelter, gather food and stuff. I mean, he was holding it down for
Yeah.
a few days, really.
I got you. And this is why I want to talk about the scene because I thought it was very, very powerful. And it actually showed Grogu being on his own because, it's always about father and son, Mando and Grogu together. But what happens when dad is not around to help him and you have to be in a position to help yourself? So Mando is poisoned. And, at some point, he's shooting and trying to defend himself. He's going to fall out at some point, and he does. And Grogu, well, he tells Grogu to get on the ship with the Anzellans, leave me be. I'll catch up with you. Just go. And Grogu knows that there's something wrong. But Mando says, go, leave. And we see Grogu turn around, but he didn't get on the ship with the Anzellans. All right. So we knew that he was not going to leave Mando all by himself. So when, Din Djarin falls to the ground, Grogu comes back over. He does try to force heal the wound, but that's not enough. Something is wrong. He's still dying. So you're right. He builds a shelter. This was a funny moment too. So he's building a shelter for Din Djarin to, keep him safe and where he won't be seen by anybody. But the shelter is not big enough, right? And he's trying
And
to
he hits
push.
his head, yeah.
Yes, he's trying to push Mando into the shelter, and the helmet just keeps hitting the back of the shelter. It's like boing, and he tries again, boing. That was very
Like, Grogu moved the entire dude with armor, and he was fine afterwards. When he pushed Mando into the shelter.
okay. You're talking about Mando. Okay, so I see what you're saying. His force powers. Yeah, for him to move somebody wearing armor, that's pretty tough. Okay, so the shelter's not big enough, and now he um, gets these leaves and branches and try to cover up the lower part of his body,
Mhm.
his legs, and everything. And then, well, how is Grogu going to take care of Din Djarin as well as take care of himself? So what Grogu does is he has to find food to eat, and he finds, I guess, call him a fisherman. This character, I don't know the name of the character because it's a new character, but he's actually the same species as a Sebulba. Did you get that? Do you think he looked like Sebulba, or did he look like some species you never seen before?
I didn't even notice. Did he have 4 arms?
I don't remember if he had forearms, but the way that his nose and his mouth looked, it reminded me of Sebulba,
He looked like a sea otter with
a sea
legs.
otter. Okay. Well, this person fishes and he lines up his fish, and then every once in a while, Grogu will go over and sneak a fish, and then he'll run off and he'll eat the fish. And this is the way that Grogu, you know, he has to take care of himself before he could take care of somebody else. So
And he
that's
found a
how he eats.
stream to get water.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's how he eats. And, all the while he is staying there with his dad and trying to figure out, okay, well, I want to be there when he wakes up. I want to keep him comfortable. And there was even a scene which was really great where he was meditating or praying. I think, he was remember he was sitting on a branch and he
Yeah.
had his eyes closed. I to me that looked like he was in prayer. Maybe he was, praying that his father would get better.
It did work.
It did work eventually. Grogu needed something to eat, so he went back to the fisherman or fisher species. I don't know. Grabs a fish and he gets caught. But then once he gets caught, then we have Embo is actually looking around trying to find Mandalorian and Grogu, and I guess he had a conversation. Embo does not speak any basic, um, so he's having a
No, he
conversation with.
speaks a little bit because he called his dog. I think that's
Okay.
the only time he speaks in the film.
Yeah, but there's a part where he did have a conversation with this person, the fisher, and this character says, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I have not seen anybody that looked like a uh, a child or a man in armor. Have no idea. Of course, he's lying to Embo. The Embo walks away, and then he has this conversation with Grogu, and he understands. Grogu, of course, can't speak, but he understands that something is wrong. He's concerned about someone, and he wants to help this little guy, make Din Djarin better. So he makes this potion and says, "Well, give this to him." Now, I want to, let you know that we don't know if he's going to make it, and if he doesn't make it, you have to prepare yourself. So he's giving a story to this little guy and telling him, "Okay, well, you can do all you can for your dad, but if it's time for him to go, then it's time for him to go." So
Yeah.
Grogu takes
Speaking of
the
which, I feel like it's a little bit convenient that Embo and his hound showed up because Grogu literally can't tell this fisherman what's going on. So I thought it was very convenient, actually, that they showed up just at the right time. And we never saw them sniffing around before or after that. So it just kind of gave some exposition to the fisherman. Like it was a clever way to get the point across, but a little bit contrived.
yeah, and I guess the fisherman needed to know, okay, well, what is behind this little dude stealing his fish? Why are you stealing his fish? What's going on? Grogu can't tell him why. So I guess you're right. He had to hear from somebody else. So Grogu takes this potion or food back to Din Djarin and feeds him under the helmet, but still no movement. And he's, you know, tugging and knocking on his helmet to see if he would wake up, and nothing's happening. And then he just I think Grogu just said, you know what, the best thing to do right now is just stay with him. So he just crawls under Din Djarin and makes a spot under his arm and falls right to sleep. And then the next day, Grogu wakes up and Din Djarin is gone, you know? And he looks around and he can see Din Djarin is already up and he's ready to go and everything seems to be okay. And Din turns around and says to Grogu, the old protects the young protects the old. This is the way. And to me, that is Din Djarin saying to Grogu, thank you for saving my life. I thought that was really, really well done. I thought that was cool.
What a lovely scene.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. So, leave it for Star Wars, you know, tell you about real life sometimes, like there are messages that they drop in, these stories about family, the importance of family and taking care of each other. It may seem, like somebody might overlook what's this moment is trying to tell us, but it's really about, okay, taking care of your loved ones, like when you know, Grogu knew that there was something wrong with the Mandalorian, and he could have gotten on that ship with the Anzellans and just taken off, but he knew that he had to stay to help his dad.
He
And if he
locked
didn't
in.
stay, yeah. And if he didn't stay, Mando would not have made it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they decide to finish up the story and they go back to the huts. They run through this crowd, right? These battle droids that the huts have employed start taking them out. And then they make it to the throne room. I guess you could call it that. Not only is Embo and the Hound there, but the huts also got to Rotta. So after he decided to go take a hiatus or whatever, they caught him up, they capture him, and they put him in this like torture chair thing. So yeah, that too. I don't even know how they got to him either, but to each their own. So then we get a bunch of little fights. We get Mando versus Embo, Rotta versus the two huts, and Grogu versus the Charhound.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And Grogu manages to put that charhound to sleep, which he's done before. And you have a very good point. This time after he's put the animal to sleep, he didn't fall asleep himself. So he is showing some strength in the force. So that's a good point for you bringing that up.
So this scene was funny to me, and then not because it was supposed to be. I just see these three huts, right? These giant space slugs just like throwing each other around, rolling across the floor.
Yeah,
I feel like if I explain it, it's not gonna make sense. But
it
just like it was such a goofy fight, and
it
they
did look
played it serious.
yeah, it did look silly, didn't it, to see these huts rolling around because, they can't really stand, and they got these little arms, but they're just rolling around like seals
Jumping on each
on the
other
floor.
like
Yeah, jumping on each
WWE.
other. And the reason why this is happening is because the cousins are actually coming after Rada. It looks like they were about ready to take him out. And then Rada woke up at the right time and said, "Why?" Or either they were trying to go after Grogu. I'm not sure which one. But then Rada woke up at the exact time, right before that they were about to take him out and Grogu, and said, "You leave him alone." And then that's when they started rolling, and
Yeah. And Rotta's just jumping all over the place,
yeah,
breaking the floor. One of the cousins is like, "Stop, you'll kill us." And then conveniently, Embo and the Hound also end up in the broken spot. And then all five of them go crashing down. And then Grogu, in another massive display of his talent, holds up this like 5 billion pound hut and then flies him back to the surface. So Rada survives. The other two huts, Embo and the Charhound, fall into the pit with the worm. Embo and the Charhound escape, and the huts get treated like Grogu treats those frogs.
yes, yeah, they were one with the spice.
hmm
Right. Yeah.
So now that that's all wrapped up, the battle droids are coming in, and there's this giant one. And for some reason, instead of aiming for the like head of the droid, Mando just waits for it to open the door enough for the other battle droids to come through, and then shoots at it. Don't know why he did that, but they start coming in, right? And then the New Republic shows up, so the Anzellans called for backup, and for some reason he asked them to like strike his location in about 5 minutes. So he's going through battle droids, running with Grogu and Rada, and then they like reach the end. He tears through the wall with his disintegrator, and then they jump, and the whole thing blows up and like crumbles. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you did you like you know, what did you think of the New Republic coming in to rescue Mando and Grogu? What did you think of that?
Eh, I mean, I think it would have been better if he did it himself because it's his movie. I don't think he really needs like X-wings and stuff to save him.
Yeah, I find it funny that okay, if they could have done that at the end of the movie, why didn't they do that in the middle of the movie when he was, battling with Embo and he got poisoned, you know? And remember, I mean, if they were keeping tabs on Mando, we don't know how long Mando was out, with the poison. But you're thinking that, okay, well, we haven't heard from Mando. He hasn't checked in a little while. Is he okay? Well, let's go get a squad and fly out and see if he's okay. They didn't do that. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the Babu freaks got there, warned them, and then sent them to Nahutta.
Okay, but the New Republic, he's working for them. So, I'm thinking, okay, well, they should at least know where he is, you know? Like every once in a while, just, you know, get a hologram message out to him like, Mando, are you okay? How are things going? How's the mission? Something. And if they were to contact him and realize that he's not responding, then they would be concerned and then they would head out and figure out where he is. No?
I mean, that is a good point.
It is convenient. Like I think what they were trying to do was, well, they wanted to leave that moment as the finale because it's such a big moment. But to be honest with you, I didn't think it worked. It didn't work for me, and I'll tell you why. Because
Mm.
it reminded me of the end of The Rise of Skywalker. So you remember when Poe was at his wit's end and he had no idea how to defeat this new rising empire or whatever it
Yeah,
is?
because somehow Palpatine returned.
Right. And then he says, okay, this is it. We can't fight this. We don't have enough people. And then he hears on the comm, Popo, you know, there's more of us, from Lando. And all of a sudden you see millions of ships just come out of hyperspace from who knows
Nowhere.
where, right? And then I didn't like that moment in the Rise of Skywalker.
It was
I didn't like it
corny.
that much. Yeah, I didn't like it that much in this movie as either. I think it's because it was just a convenient thing. Oh well, we needed the finale needs to be these X-wings, come in and they save the day. Well, I didn't think that was necessary, but I agree with you. I think Mando should have found a way to actually get out of his own, you know, hole that he was in because he is the star of his show. But okay.
Yeah. Also, Zeb is really only in the first third and the last 2 minutes of the film.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, many of the cast members. Well, let's talk about the cast members. Like, first of all, there aren't that many human species in the film. I mean, a lot of the characters were either droids or other types of species.
I mean, it
Um,
makes sense. Galaxy's big.
yeah,
The only
yeah,
humans were Mando and Sigourney Weaver.
yeah. And Sigourney Weaver, again, wasn't to me. She had this M role, like in the Bond films. M, you only see her at the beginning, maybe in the middle when she complains to Bond. Oh, you didn't do it right. What are you going to do next? What's your next step, Bond? What are you going to do? And then he ends up doing the right thing, and he, you know, takes out the villain. And at the end of the movie, she comes back and says, "What a great job you did." So to me, that felt like Sigourney Weaver's character. Like she came in the beginning, gave him the mission. In the middle, she complained, "You're sloppy," and then at the end, "I saved the day. I saved you, Mando," type of thing. And so really didn't give her much to do. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she needs much to do, but like the character herself, I think there wasn't much room for her in the plot because the New Republic didn't have jurisdiction on the fighting planet, and Mando was kind of on his own looking for Commander Coin. I think she was holding it down at the Republic base, New Republic base. So I don't know how they would have got her away from the New Republic base and into the main plot.
yeah, well, I think she only had maybe a few scenes to shoot in a short amount of time, but you have a major actor like Sigourney Weaver. She's a veteran. She's been in this business for many years. You would want to give her a meaty role, I would think, but that wasn't the case, and I'm not sure why. But,
Yeah, I
it
would
would have been
agree.
yeah, it would have been nice to see more of her. So, let's talk about the other characters, the Anzellans. I think they're still very funny. I love seeing them. I like to see them talk, and, they're resilient and they have each other's
Yeah.
back. Remember one of them was picked up by the Charhound, and, they went and, "Okay, let's go get him. Let's go find him." You know what I mean? So they wanted to make sure that, all of them were intact and, 5 go in, 5 come out type of thing. So I
I
really
think there
like
were only
that.
4 of them.
Okay, were there 4? Okay. 5 was just a random number I just picked out. Right. So if 4 came in to this mission, 4 go home, so so that was nice. And I like the way they worked together with Grogu, like, "Good job, baby," type of thing. So that was pretty nice. Um, Martin Scorsese, his character. I think I had his character's name written down, but Martin Scorsese, I thought he did very well. Do you know who Martin Scorsese is?
Yes.
Just checking.
How
All
can I
right, just
not?
checking. Okay.
Remember when he
Um,
said he hates Marvel movies?
yes, that is the one. I don't think he said he hates, but he is from a school of filmmakers who, um, you know, they he makes a lot of low budget, character driven films. And he feels that films like these big budget movies like Marvel's, the Avengers, and that kind of stuff, um, is really taking business away from these smaller films. Like people are going to see these big tentpole movies, but they're not going to see these small films that he's used to creating. Um, but it's interesting. He would do a Star Wars movie, so I don't know what the difference is.
He
I
started singing a different tune.
Yeah, well, I think it's just because he's a good friend of George Lucas. Yeah, I don't know if he's friends with anybody in Marvel. on the Marvel side, but I know that he and George Lucas um, have known each other since they were, young filmmakers back then. So I think he did it as a favor to George. But anyway, I thought his character, like the hand movements and the body movements all matched up very well to his accent. Like he's using his hands and he's saying, "No, no, I didn't say that. Did you hear me say that? I didn't say anything like that. I didn't give you any information." Type of thing, and the hand movements and the eyes it was wonderful. I
It
thought
was
he did a
very well
real
animated.
yeah, did a really good job with and I think it was a puppet. I don't think it was CGI, but yeah, well done. Let's see. Any other characters? Well, how did you think Jeremy Allen White did as Rotta the Hutt?
I couldn't have told you it was him until I read the credits. I think that's because I've seen him in The Bear, right? Like a lot of his acting talents, like facially, they get lost because he's playing like a giant CGI slug. But I think the voice acting was pretty good. I liked him. He sounded convincing.
Yeah, I mean, his tone never changed throughout the movie. Like he was very laid back, calm voice until the very end when, of course, somebody was trying to take his own life. And of course, he got angry. But throughout the movie, it was just this monotone. Like, yeah, like, can I feed him? Yeah. What's his name? I'm not like my father. I'm not like my father. To me, it's just like, okay, well, can you show a little more emotion? It's
Not a big Rada fan, are we?
I'm not saying that I'm not a fan. It's just an interesting character to have in a movie, but I think it did the trick. So all in all, I'll tell you. So this movie to me is a safe film. And what I mean by that is you're not getting anything from Mando and Grogu that you have not already seen on Disney. Mando is Mandoing, Grogu is Groguing. Nothing is any different from the characters they portrayed in the Disney Plus movie. It's the same characters in the film. There were
Well,
no
I will say,
surprises.
I don't think there need to be like life-ending stakes in every film. Because Mando and Grogu, at its core, is a feel-good, family fun movie. And it wouldn't do you a lot of good to kill off your titular character in a film, right? Like, there could be stakes, but you can't be like taking lives left and right of the main heroes. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really the forum for that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, Mando and Grogu have to live at the end of the movie and they have to be together. That's just the way it is, This is the way. So that's not going to change. But yeah, again, if you're looking for surprises in this movie, we don't get any. There's no cameo appearances. Yeah. So I mean, if you're a fan of the series, I can't see why you wouldn't enjoy this movie. Um, I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what to expect from this film, and I wasn't looking for it to really move the needle or give us something that we'd never seen before. So, and that's what they did. But for some reason, I still feel
Fulfilled.
slighted. Yeah, unfulfilled. Yeah. Something like there was something missing in the film that I wanted, but didn't get. I just needed something just give me something that we weren't expecting. And, I didn't get that. For example, we have not heard Grogu speak yet. And I thought this would have been the perfect opportunity in this film to have him say his first words. That's one thing. Can you imagine if he said his first word was daddy? It would have shook the whole theater. I think people would have just, dropped to the floor. It would have been so moving and so exciting to hear him say his first words, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see, this film has got me thinking about the future of the characters, because like, where do they really go from here? Like, you can make it a trilogy, I guess, but like,
Hmm.
as of right now, it's got 60% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics. Fan scores aren't in, like, I haven't seen the fan scores yet, but I'm just thinking, like, this not, between season 3 being widely not liked and this movie being, middle of the pack, do you think they're gonna try and cut their losses and not make any more Mando projects? Do you think they're gonna continue his and Grogu's story by putting them in other projects? Or do you think we're gonna get more of their own films or maybe another season.
Well, I don't think there's going to be another film for them anytime soon. I think they're going to return to Disney Plus, maybe do a season 4. And then so then there could be this Mandoverse that we've been hearing about with Dave Filoni, where he's bringing together characters from Ahsoka and the Mandalorian and bringing them all together into one film, like the Avengers, type of thing. That could still happen. I don't think it's going to happen immediately. That could be like 3, 4, 5 years down the line. I don't know. But within that time frame, people still want to see Mandalorian and Grogu. And I think the thing to do is to just bring them back to Disney Plus. I don't think a film um, would be necessary for them to bring them
Yeah,
back
I
to
don't think
Marvel.
it's their medium. Unless
Well,
it's like an ensemble cast kind of film. Like if you make the Avengers, but with like Ahsoka, Mando, Fennec Shand, Boba Fett,
yeah,
those kind of characters, I think that would work. But I don't think Mando and Grogu can carry another film.
yes, I agree with that. And also, some of the things, I was just talking about how maybe unfulfilled I am with this movie. Something else I would like to see is I wanted to see a more a bigger and more intimidating villain. And I didn't get that in this film. Like I wanted a big villain, someone that would be the thread that would tie into the story from beginning to end. One big villain
Yeah.
rather than four smaller villains, if you know what I mean.
I think everything got wrapped up a little bit too neatly. Also, I don't think the villains got fleshed out that much.
Yes.
'Cause it's like,
Yes.
you had the guy at the beginning who doesn't really matter, and then you
Yes.
had Coin, and you had the 2 Hutts, so that's 3 main villains that you gotta worry about, and
And
ironically,
Embo.
I
Yeah.
think the dude at the beginning got the most character work out of all of the villains.
Yeah, I was surprised that the villain wasn't going to be someone from the Empire or whatever remnants there are that's left, an Imperial officer. I
I
thought
mean,
that
technically,
was
he was Commander Coin.
okay. Well, yeah, I don't think he was effective, as the villain because I honestly, I've seen the movie twice, but I don't remember much of what he's done or what he did in the film. So I think you're at a good point about maybe having the character fleshed out a little bit more, like being a little more of a match for Din Djarin. I don't think he was somebody to worry about. He just seems very weaselly or somebody that was too
Mm.
weak to be a villain, in my opinion. I don't know.
And, I know I said that there don't need to be like life-ending stakes in every movie, but at the same time, I never really felt that Mando was in danger,
Correct.
especially with Commander Coin. I
Hmm.
don't think Coin was really posing a threat to him because I usually like when the characters are punching up instead of punching down or punching at their level because it's not really an interesting struggle if the hero doesn't have something to overcome. I'm cool with static characters, but Mando doesn't really change in this movie, and I think it would have been nice if there was like more to his character that we see here.
I agree. I like that. I like that. And then I'm very surprised that there was no mention of Grief Karga.
I was gonna say that. I thought there would
Yeah,
be like a tribute at the beginning or something, or like a dedicated to Carl Weathers.
yeah. I'm very surprised. I mean, the late great Carl Weathers, he was a huge reason why the show was successful.
Yeah,
He
he was a
actually
great character
directed it.
too.
Yeah, great character, and he directed a couple of episodes, but no mention at all. Is Grief Karga still alive? We don't even know. If he is,
Well, I
well,
think
where
they
is he?
even went to Navarro. Because remember when Mando was at his house, he had the M1 starfighter parked outside. I think that was Navarro. Which in that case, it's even weirder that they never mentioned Grief Karga.
Interesting. Yeah, not one mention. And then one more thing I wanted to say. So, when well, we watched the last episode of Maul Shadow Lord, and if you keep the credits rolling, eventually Disney Plus will tell you, okay, well, if you like this, then you should watch this. And remember, something came up on the screen recommending us to watch, and it was Mandalorian. chapter 4. Do you remember that?
I think that's because that's the last one you watched, but okay.
Is it? Okay. All right. Well, I thought it was weird that that popped up for no particular reason. Is you think it's because that, oh, okay, I might have wanted to watch it and didn't get around to it and it popped up again? I don't know. Yeah, it might be true. Okay.
Might just be promotion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, well, promotion, but promoting what? Because it's just so happened that that episode was Cara Dune's introduction, right? So
Yeah.
I thought it was intentional that Disney Plus was actually, you know, recommending chapter 4. Usually they start from the beginning of the season, chapter 1, but chapter 4. So I thought maybe they're preparing us to see Cara Dune in the movie. I don't know.
Wouldn't that be a treat? I think
Yeah,
she's
that would
got a
have been.
wrestling match coming up in real life.
I think it happened last week. I
Same
think it.
difference.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think they showed you episode 4 because you'd already watched episode 3, so they were just going to the next one.
Wouldn't that have been interesting to see her come back in this movie? I know some
That would be
fans.
a genius marketing strategy.
Yeah, because at the time before the movie came out, there were something in the news about um, Gina Carano having conversations with Dave Filoni and John Favreau, and like things seems to be the relationship there is getting better, and they work things out. So I thought this was all a plan. Oh, okay, well, Cara Dune's coming back. These are the hints, and there she is. And I'm sure half of the fan base would have hated the idea of her coming back. Then the other half would have just cheered her on the screen. But my point is, I wish we had something like that, something else from the movie. But outside of that, it was just, you know, standard procedures. It's Mando and Grogu, and that's what we got. But again, it was uh, it was not a bad movie. I just wanted a little bit more, even though I had low expectations. I didn't know what to expect. But then, I left the movie thinking, okay, we could have done something else, something more to to have us remember this movie and talk about it for the next few weeks. So, but all right, that is our review of The Mandalorian and Grogu. Okay. Send in your comments. I can't wait to hear. Anything else you want to say, Keith? I actually did the wrap up for you because I know I always ask you to, you
Yeah,
know,
thank you, thank you.
I always
No,
ask
I
you to
think
tell
that's it.
people where they can find us. So that is it. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So thank you, everyone. Once again, that is our spoiler review of Mando, The Mandalorian, and Grogu. Until next time, take care, and we will see you
We'll
again.
see you again.